You remind me of the babe. What babe? The babe with the power. Labyrinth wasn't just a whimsical children's fantasy about a teenage girl rescuing her baby brother. It was a production nightmare that nearly destroyed careers, featured life-threatening stunts, and left Jim Henson so devastated by its failure that some believe it drove him away from directing forever. Behind David Bowie's glittering codpiece and those mesmerizing puppet creatures lay a world of chaos. Actresses risked losing fingers to mechanical hinges, crystal ball tricks required dangerous choreography, and one tiny baby may have urinated on the world's most famous rock star during their first meeting. The Goblin King's castle wasn't built on magic. It was constructed from pure desperation, creative warfare, and moments of genuine terror. Today, we're revealing 20 weird facts about Labyrinth that will shatter everything you thought you knew about this beloved cult classic. From the shocking truth about who almost played Jareth to the disturbing reason why one iconic puppet ended up lost in an Alabama baggage claim, these secrets expose the brutal reality behind the fantasy. But wait until you hear our bonus fact about what happened to the baby who played Toby. You won't believe where he is now. Let's journey through the labyrinth of production hell and discover what really happened when cameras stopped rolling. 25 scripts were written and rejected in creative warfare. The labyrinth wasn't just on screen, it existed in the writer's room. What audiences didn't know was that Labyrinth went through a staggering 25 different treatments and script versions, each one torn apart and rebuilt in a creative battle that lasted years. It wasn't a collaborative process. It was literary warfare. Illustrator Brian Froud pitched Jim Henson his vision after screening The Dark Crystal, but from that moment, creative chaos erupted. Monty Python's Terry Jones wrote one version. Fraggle Rock writer Laura Phillips created another. Comedy legend Elaine May stepped in for brutal revisions that completely humanized the characters. The process became so fractured that when Terry Jones received sole screenplay credit, he admitted he didn't feel very close to the final version. His original script was so different that Jareth didn't even appear until halfway through the movie. Not 25 drafts of the same story, but 25 completely different movies fighting for survival. The creative carnage left scars. Scripts were abandoned. Entire storylines vanished. What emerged wasn't a compromise. It was the survivor of a literary battle royale. Jennifer Connelly beat Hollywood royalty in a casting bloodbath. The role of Sarah wasn't handed to Jennifer Connelly. She had to survive a casting gauntlet that reads like a who's who of future Hollywood stars, each one desperate for their breakout moment. Jane Krakowski auditioned. So did Yasmin Bleeth, Sarah Jessica Parker, Mary Stuart Masterson, Laura Dern, Lily Taylor, Laura San Giacomo, Ali Sheedy, and Mia Sara. Not just casual auditions, but intense competition where careers hung in the balance. Krakowski, Sheedy, and Maddie Corman made it to the final 3 candidates before Connelly delivered the performance that won Henson over. What audiences see as Connelly's natural chemistry with the puppets was actually the result of beating some of the most talented young actresses of the 1980s. Every line delivery, every emotional moment, every interaction with Hoggle and Ludo, all of it exists because Connelly proved she could handle something 9 other future stars couldn't master. The irony cuts deep. Many of those rejected actresses went on to massive television and film success, but none of them got to journey through the labyrinth that would become a defining cultural touchstone. Michael Jackson was almost the Goblin King. Before David Bowie's iconic performance, before the leather pants and wild hair, before Magic Dance became a cultural phenomenon, Jim Henson had a completely different vision for Jareth. The Goblin King was going to be Michael Jackson. This wasn't a rumor or Hollywood gossip. Terry Jones received an actual note from Henson stating that either Michael Jackson or David Bowie would play Jareth, completely changing the character from a non-human creature to a singing, dancing rock star who appears throughout the entire film. The decision between Jackson and Bowie wasn't about talent. Both were musical legends. It was about which superstar could embody the dangerous seduction of the Goblin King. Henson spent 2 years meeting with Bowie, giving him development updates, slowly convincing him to take the role. Imagine Jackson's moonwalk in the ballroom scene. Picture Magic Dance with Jackson's signature vocals. The entire cultural impact of Labyrinth pivots on this single casting decision. Bowie's otherworldly androgyny created something Jackson's pure showmanship couldn't have achieved. Not better or worse, but fundamentally different. A parallel universe where the king of pop ruled the goblins instead of the thin white duke. Maurice Sendak's lawyers nearly shut down production. The threat came without warning. Production was rolling when Maurice Sendak's legal team delivered a devastating ultimatum: stop filming or face serious consequences. The beloved author of Where the Wild Things Are recognized dangerous similarities between Labyrinth and his work Outside Over There. It wasn't just paranoia. The plots were eerily similar. Some creatures were originally going to be called Wild Things, a direct reference to Sendak's most famous creation. What looked like innocent inspiration to Henson's team looked like potential copyright infringement to Sendak's lawyers. The production faced a complete shutdown. Millions of dollars invested, sets constructed, schedules arranged, all of it threatened by legal action from one of children's literature's most respected figures. Henson was forced to add a credit acknowledging his debt to the works of Maurice Sendak to satisfy the legal challenge. Sendak withdrew his objection, but the damage lingered. For years afterward, he continued complaining about the similarities. What audiences see as homage, Sendak experienced as theft. The movie credits contain a permanent reminder of this behind-the-scenes battle, a legal scar that most viewers never notice, but represents a moment when Labyrinth almost died before reaching theaters. Darth Vader personally delivered good luck to Jim Henson. George Lucas didn't just produce Labyrinth. He orchestrated one of the most surreal good luck gestures in film history. On the first day of filming, as cast and crew nervously prepared for months of intensive puppet work, an unexpected visitor arrived on set. Darth Vader walked onto the Elstree Studio soundstage. Not an actor in costume for a quick cameo, but the actual Dark Lord of the Sith, approaching Jim Henson with ceremonial purpose. The iconic villain handed the puppet master a good luck card, arranged secretly by Lucas as a surprise for the entire production. The moment captured everything magical about 1980s filmmaking, when the creator of Star Wars and the genius behind the Muppets joined forces to create something unprecedented. Cast members watched in stunned silence as two universes collided, the mechanical breathing of Vader mixing with the gentle creativity of Henson's workshop. Lucas understood the pressure Henson faced. After the mixed reception of The Dark Crystal, this collaboration with Lucasfilm represented enormous professional stakes. Having Darth Vader personally deliver encouragement wasn't just a gesture. It was Lucas saying this production mattered, that Henson's vision deserved the same respect as a galaxy far, far away. The Henson family secretly infiltrated the cast. Jim Henson didn't just direct Labyrinth, he turned it into an elaborate family affair, placing his children in key roles without most audiences ever realizing the connection. The production became a Henson dynasty in disguise. Brian Henson provided the voice of Hoggle, the grumpy dwarf who becomes Sarah's reluctant guide. Not just voice work, but the emotional core of the character's personality. Every sarcastic comment, every moment of hidden warmth, every line that makes Hoggle memorable, all delivered by Jim's son. Cheryl Henson operated one of the Fireys, those wild creatures who remove their body parts during the film's most surreal sequence. While audiences focused on the bizarre choreography and David Bowie's singing, Jim's daughter was literally inside the madness, puppeteering one of the film's most memorable supporting characters. The family involvement wasn't nepotism, it was artistic inheritance. The Hensons didn't just create puppet entertainment, they lived it, breathed it, became it. Jim was passing down not just technical skills, but creative philosophy to the next generation. Labyrinth served as both a major motion picture and a masterclass in Henson family tradition. Magic Dance contains a hidden Cary Grant reference. You Remind Me of the Babe isn't original Bowie wordplay. It's a clever adaptation of classic Hollywood dialogue that most audiences never recognize. The opening of Magic Dance directly references a 1947 film called The Bachelor and the Bobby Soxer. In the original scene, Cary Grant tells Shirley Temple, "Hey, you remind me of a man." Temple asks, "What man?" Grant replies, "Man with the power." "What power?" "Power of the hoodoo." "Hoodoo? You do. Do what?" "Remind me of a man."
Hey, you remind me of a man.
What man?
The man with the power.
What power?
The power of hoodoo.
Who do?
You do.
Do what?
Remind me of a man.
What man?
The man with the power.
What Good morning.
Bowie and the screenwriters took this rapid-fire dialogue exchange and transformed it for the Goblin audience, replacing man with babe and hoodoo with voodoo. What seems like whimsical nonsense actually represents sophisticated cultural layering, a rock star paying homage to classic Hollywood through puppet theater. The reference works on multiple levels. Older viewers might catch the Cary Grant connection and smile at the clever adaptation. Younger audiences simply enjoy the rhythmic wordplay without needing the reference to appreciate the song. But knowing the source transforms Magic Dance from simple children's entertainment into postmodern cultural commentary. David Bowie provided baby sound effects when the real baby refused. Professional musicians face many unusual recording challenges, but David Bowie encountered something uniquely absurd during Magic Dance production. The baby featured in the scene, played by Toby Froud, refused to cooperate with the musical demands of a rock star. The infant would only gurgle once at a time, not twice, not in rhythm. Just one baby gurgle, then silence, completely disrupting the song's flow and recording schedule. Studio time costs money. The band was waiting. The production had deadlines. Something had to give. Bowie stepped up to the microphone and provided his own baby gurgle sound effects. The Thin White Duke, creator of Ziggy Stardust and Heroes, spent recording session time making infant noises to complete a puppet musical number. One of rock's most sophisticated artists reduced to baby talk for the sake of Goblin entertainment. The final recording seamlessly blends real baby sounds with Bowie's imitations, creating an audio collage that audiences never question. But every time you hear Magic Dance, remember that some of those adorable baby noises came from one of Britain's most celebrated rock stars, proving his commitment to the weird demands of puppet filmmaking. Michael Moschen performed Dangerous Crystal Ball, juggling blindfolded. David Bowie's mesmerizing crystal ball manipulation wasn't David Bowie at all. The entire sequence represents one of cinema's most dangerous and technically challenging puppet tricks, performed by choreographer Michael Moschen under conditions that could have resulted in serious injury. Moschen crouched directly behind Bowie, threading his arms underneath the rock star's armpits to make the crystal balls appear to float through Jareth's hands. But here's the terrifying part. Moschen performed this complex juggling routine without being able to see what he was doing. No monitor, no visual reference, just muscle memory and spatial awareness. The crystal balls weren't lightweight props. They were solid glass spheres that could cause real damage if dropped or mishandled. Moschen had to maintain perfect timing and positioning while contorted behind another performer, executing choreography that professional jugglers would find challenging under normal circumstances. Every moment of Jareth's supernatural ball manipulation represents invisible artistry from a performer the audience never sees. Moschen's contribution transforms Bowie from rock star to magician, but the real magic happened behind the scenes, a masterclass in physical performance that pushes the boundaries of what's possible in practical filmmaking. The shaft of hands scene nearly killed Jennifer Connelly. The most beautiful sequence in Labyrinth almost became its most tragic. Jennifer Connelly's journey down the shaft of hands pushed practical filmmaking to deadly extremes, creating genuine danger for a teenage actress who trusted the production with her life. Connelly was suspended on a harness 40 feet above the ground with nothing to hold on to for stability. The mechanical hands weren't just props, they were operated by hinges powerful enough to sever fingers if touched incorrectly. The production crew explicitly warned her that reaching behind the harness shaft could result in losing fingers to the machinery. Not movie magic. Real danger. One wrong movement, one balance error, one moment of panic, and the lead actress of a major motion picture could have been seriously injured or killed. Henson remembered having about 100 performers operating the rig, all coordinating to keep Connelly safe while creating the illusion of supernatural assistance. But here's what makes it even more intense. Go ahead and like and subscribe, because we're about to reveal how this sequence represents everything terrifying about 1980s filmmaking, when practical effects demanded real physical risk from performers, and safety protocols were often secondary to achieving the perfect shot. The final footage captures genuine vulnerability in Connelly's performance, because she was actually vulnerable, suspended in mechanical chaos, trusting her life to puppet engineering.
Toby Froud urinated on David Bowie during their first meeting.
Sometimes, the most humanizing behind-the-scenes moments involve basic biological functions. Toby Froud, the baby who played Toby in the film, created an unforgettable first impression with the world's most famous rock star, and it wasn't pretty. During their initial meeting, baby Toby may have peed on David Bowie, not a dramatic production disaster or creative difference, just an infant doing what infants do at the worst possible moment. The Goblin King, in full costume and makeup, receiving an unwelcome shower from his smallest co-star. Toby Froud, now a professional puppeteer himself, admits he remembers very little about his Labyrinth experience, except for this potentially embarrassing encounter with Bowie. The incident represents the collision between rock star glamour and authentic infant behavior. No amount of stardom protects you from baby bodily functions. Bowie handled the situation with professional grace, but imagine the absurdity. One of Britain's most sophisticated musical artists, dressed as a supernatural villain, getting urinated on by a baby who would grow up to follow in his father, Brian Froud's artistic footsteps. The moment captures everything unpredictable about working with both infants and puppets. The Goblin's voices created constant confusion for David Bowie. David Bowie entered Labyrinth expecting to perform opposite traditional actors, but instead found himself trapped in an audio nightmare that constantly disrupted his concentration and performance rhythm. The goblin voices didn't come from the creatures' mouths, they came from everywhere else. All goblin dialogue was provided by off-screen voice actors positioned behind Bowie or to the sides of the set. When he tried to make eye contact with a goblin character during conversation, the voice would emerge from a completely different direction, creating constant spatial confusion that threw off his performance instincts. For a performer accustomed to traditional theatrical interaction, this audio displacement created genuine challenges. Bowie couldn't rely on natural conversational cues or eye contact to build scene chemistry. Every goblin interaction required him to ignore his instincts and perform against invisible voice sources. The technical solution that made the goblins possible created an acting nightmare for their co-star. Bowie had to learn an entirely new performance technique, responding to characters whose voices existed separately from their physical presence, maintaining emotional connection with puppets whose dialogue emerged from puppet operators hidden throughout the set. George Lucas secretly co-edited the final film. Jim Henson directed Labyrinth, but George Lucas quietly shaped its final form through extensive editing that fundamentally changed the movie's pacing and dialogue structure. The collaboration went far deeper than executive producer credits suggested. Henson completed the first cut, then stepped back while Lucas took over editorial control. This wasn't casual consultation. Lucas performed substantial re-editing before returning the project to Henson for post-production and audio work. Two different directorial philosophies clashed in the editing room. Lucas cuts dialogue tightly, creating rapid-fire conversation that propels narrative forward. Henson preferred a more leisurely pacing that allowed puppet performances to breathe and develop. The final version represents a compromise between these approaches. Lucas's efficiency merged with Henson's character development. The editing process reveals how Labyrinth became a hybrid creation. Audiences see Henson's visual imagination and puppet artistry, but the film's rhythm and conversational flow bear Lucas's editorial fingerprints. Every scene transition, every dialogue exchange, every moment of pacing reflects this behind-the-scenes collaboration between two masters of their craft. Hoggle was lost in airport baggage and found years later. One of Labyrinth's most beloved characters met a fate more bizarre than anything in the film itself. Hoggle, the grumpy dwarf who guides Sarah through her journey, ended up lost in airline baggage and discovered years later in Alabama under shocking circumstances. A worker at the unclaimed baggage center in Scottsboro, Alabama, was unpacking a large wooden crate when he came face to face with Hoggle. Completely unexpected and terrifying in the context of sorting lost luggage. The puppet had been shipped somewhere, never claimed, and eventually ended up in this repository for abandoned airline cargo. Imagine the worker's shock, opening what should contain normal lost items and instead finding the detailed puppet face of a major movie character staring back. Hoggle wasn't just a costume piece, but a sophisticated mechanical puppet with realistic facial features designed to interact with human actors. The puppet remains at the unclaimed baggage center, a permanent resident of this strange museum where lost airline cargo finds final homes. Hoggle's journey from movie set to Alabama baggage claim represents one of the most unusual post-production fates in film history, a beloved character trapped in bureaucratic limbo. Jim Henson was devastated by the box office failure. The numbers tell a brutal story. Labyrinth cost $25 million to produce and made back only about half that amount during its initial theatrical run. For Jim Henson, this wasn't just financial disappointment. It felt like personal rejection from audiences worldwide. Henson's wife Jane revealed that the box office failure devastated her husband, who interpreted the poor reception as audiences personally rejecting his creative vision. Not just criticism of the film, but criticism of everything he represented as an artist and entertainer. The failure cut especially deep because Labyrinth represented Henson's most ambitious attempt to create sophisticated puppet entertainment for broader audiences. After years of Muppet success, this collaboration with George Lucas and David Bowie was supposed to prove that puppet artistry could compete with any form of filmmaking. Instead, Henson faced the harsh reality that audiences weren't ready for his vision. The disappointment was so profound that many believe it drove him away from film directing permanently. He never directed another feature film before his death in 1990, making Labyrinth both his most ambitious project and his final directorial statement. The Baby Toby almost caused multiple production delays. Working with infant actors creates unpredictable challenges, but Baby Toby pushed Labyrinth production to its limits with behavior that constantly disrupted filming schedules and endangered expensive equipment. Babies don't follow call sheets or respect camera setups. Toby's natural infant behavior, crying, sleeping, eating, and general unpredictability created constant scheduling chaos. Scenes had to be planned around feeding times, nap schedules, and the baby's mood fluctuations. Professional film productions operate on precise timing, but babies operate on biological necessity. The production team couldn't simply replace Baby Toby when he became difficult. His face was already established in earlier scenes, and finding another infant with a similar appearance would have created continuity problems. The entire massive production, hundreds of crew members, expensive sets, complicated puppet operations, sometimes had to wait for one baby to cooperate. Beyond scheduling issues, Toby created genuine safety concerns. Infants are unpredictable around expensive equipment, elaborate costumes, and mechanical puppets. Every scene required additional safety protocols to protect both the baby and the production's valuable assets. The fiery sequence required dangerous body part removal choreography. The Fieries scene, where creatures remove their heads, limbs, and body parts while dancing, represents one of the most technically complex puppet sequences ever filmed, requiring choreography that pushed performers to physical limits while creating genuine safety hazards. Multiple puppeteers had to coordinate the removal and replacement of body parts while maintaining the illusion that the creatures were single entities. Arms had to be detached and reattached in precise timing. Heads had to be removed while performers continued dancing. The choreography demanded split-second coordination between multiple people operating different parts of the same character. The scene wasn't computer-generated. Every body part removal was practical puppetry requiring performers to physically separate and manipulate costume pieces while maintaining character performance. One timing error could destroy the illusion or cause injury to performers working in close quarters with mechanical components. Cheryl Henson, Jim's daughter, was one of the puppeteers inside this chaos, operating a fiery character while coordinating with other performers to create the seamless body part manipulation that audiences see on screen. The sequence represents peak practical puppetry, technically brilliant but physically demanding and potentially dangerous. David Bowie's costume created constant wardrobe malfunctions. David Bowie's iconic Goblin King costume, particularly those legendary tight pants, created ongoing practical problems that the production had to solve while maintaining the character's supernatural mystique. The wardrobe wasn't just clothing, it was a technical challenge. The leather pants were so tight, they restricted Bowie's movement during dance sequences and fight choreography. Every scene required careful consideration of what physical actions were possible without damaging the costume or compromising the actor's ability to perform. The iconic look came at the cost of practical functionality. Beyond movement restrictions, the elaborate costume required constant maintenance and adjustment throughout filming. Leather doesn't breathe well under hot studio lights, creating comfort issues for extended shooting days. The multiple costume pieces had to be precisely arranged for each shot to maintain visual consistency. The wardrobe department developed specific protocols for helping Bowie in and out of the restrictive costume pieces, and backup costumes had to be available in case of tears or damage during physical scenes. The Goblin King's supernatural appearance required very earthly problem-solving from the costume team. The ballroom sequence used forced perspective trickery. The magical ballroom scene where Sarah dances with Jareth among mysterious figures wasn't filmed in an actual ballroom. The entire sequence represents sophisticated forced perspective trickery that created the illusion of grand space within the confines of a sound stage. The elaborate ballroom set was constructed using forced perspective techniques. Background elements were built smaller than foreground elements to create the illusion of vast space. The dancing figures weren't all full-sized people, but a combination of normal performers, smaller performers, and puppet figures strategically placed to enhance the depth illusion. Jennifer Connelly and David Bowie had to perform their intimate dance while surrounded by this artificial environment, maintaining romantic chemistry while navigating a set designed to trick the camera rather than provide natural performance space. The actors couldn't rely on authentic spatial relationships, but had to trust that the camera angle would sell the illusion. The sequence required precise choreography not just from the dancers, but from the camera operators, who had to maintain specific angles to preserve the forced perspective effect. One wrong camera movement would reveal the artificial nature of the elaborate ballroom setting. Terry Jones disowned his own screenplay. Monty Python's Terry Jones received sole screenplay credit for Labyrinth, but by the time filming completed, he felt so disconnected from the final product that he publicly distanced himself from his own work. The credited writer disowning his creation represents one of Hollywood's strangest authorship situations. Jones's original script underwent so many revisions, rewrites, and creative committee changes that the final film bore little resemblance to his initial vision. 25 different treatments and script versions later, Jones looked at Labyrinth and saw someone else's movie with his name attached. The creative process had been so collaborative, so influenced by multiple writers, directors, and studio input that Jones felt he couldn't claim authentic ownership of the final screenplay. His name was on the credits, but his creative vision had been filtered through so many other perspectives that it became unrecognizable. This wasn't typical Hollywood ego or creative differences. Jones genuinely felt that the movie audiences saw wasn't the movie he wrote, making his screenplay credit more legal technicality than an artistic accomplishment. The situation highlights how collaborative filmmaking can sometimes erase the original creator's vision entirely. Bonus fact: Toby Froud didn't just appear in Labyrinth as an infant, he grew up to follow directly in his father Brian Froud's artistic footsteps, becoming a professional puppeteer and creature designer who now works on major film and television productions. The baby who may have urinated on David Bowie became part of the puppet legacy that created him. Now an adult, Toby Froud has worked on projects including The Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance, and other high-profile puppet productions. He represents the artistic continuity between Labyrinth's creation and its ongoing cultural influence. The film didn't just launch Jennifer Connelly's career, it literally shaped the life path of the baby who appeared alongside her. Froud admits he remembers almost nothing about his Labyrinth experience except possibly peeing on Bowie during their first meeting. But his adult career suggests that even as an infant, he absorbed something essential about puppet artistry and creature creation that would define his professional life decades later. Labyrinth failed at the box office but succeeded at something more important, creating a world so compelling that audiences discovered it years later and never let go. The production disasters, the creative battles, the physical dangers, and the technical innovations all contributed to a film that feels authentically magical because it was forged through authentic struggle. Jim Henson died believing audiences had rejected his most ambitious vision. He never lived to see Labyrinth become a beloved cult classic, inspiring countless artists, puppeteers, and filmmakers. The movie he thought represented failure became his most enduring legacy beyond the Muppets. Every behind-the-scenes disaster contributed to the final film's unique energy. The creative chaos produced genuine magic. The technical challenges pushed practical filmmaking to new heights. The physical dangers created performances with real emotional stakes. Did you know these dark secrets behind Labyrinth's production? Let us know in the comments which fact shocked you most, and don't forget to subscribe for more behind-the-scenes revelations from your favorite films. Because in the labyrinth of movie magic, the most incredible stories happen when the cameras stop rolling.